Hello and welcome to the Convos Cultural Update. It's great to have you along with us again. In this episode, we have the great pleasure of sharing a socially distanced interview with the award-winning playwright Ethan Lipton. Purdue Convocations audiences will happily recall their first encounter with Ethan's work during the 3 Stories High Downtown Theater Festival that we produced in 2015. And it included Ethan Lipton and his orchestra and their uproarious yet poignant gig theater work called No Place to Go. It was inspired by the hijinks and implications of the Great Recession in 2008. And we presented it in the intimate confines of the original Carnahan Hall location, and it was in a sold-out run. You guys devoured it, so we had such a great time with them. And so Ethan wrote a sequel to No Place to Go called The Outer Space, which was another poignant yet comedic work that explored what followed, if you will, the aftermath of the Great Recession. So thrilled to have this chance to visit with him. Mike Garmentrout, our Senior Associate Director here at Convos, he and I had the great pleasure of seeing Ethan just this past January at Joe's Pub in New York City, where he was presenting some highlights and excerpts from his work, along with some new works in progress. And so it was great to see him and connect with him there and hear the new material that is underway. He also had a new production called Tumacho. It's a theater piece with music that he wrote. He didn't perform in it, but it was produced in New York. And unfortunately, the COVID crisis cut the run short, but not before it had critical acclaim in the New York Times. And so we certainly are celebrating for Ethan the success of Tumacho. But we also are celebrating for Ethan the fact that in the beginning of April, he was named a Guggenheim Fellow awardee, along with many other impressive people across the disciplines of science and literature. And so we're happy to celebrate that. So Ethan has agreed to join us for an interview. And so we're very pleased to present this interview with Ethan. Here we go. Welcome to the Convos Cultural Update, Ethan. It's great to have you with us. So how are you and your loved ones doing? Are you surviving there in Brooklyn?
Yes, thank you. It's nice to be here. We are surviving, it feels like all the things, I guess. On the one hand, I feel very fortunate. Everybody in my family is okay, and I'm okay, and I have skills as a writer that serve this moment, namely that I like to be home. I enjoy my own company. I like to cook. And the idea of an uncertain future is something I'm pretty familiar with. So in that sense, I feel very fortunate. And then I'm, worried for the world and for all of the fields that I'm in and for the people that I know. So, yeah. And I think every 10 days, I was realizing the other day, I think I go for a couple of hours, I maybe go a little bit crazy. In ways that I'm not entirely sure, but it all kind of comes back together.
Well, the fact that you're limiting it to 10-day intervals is very admirable.
Thank you. You actually feel good about that.
So I know that you have a little one at home right now, hopefully napping. And so maybe in all of this, there's a small silver lining that you get to have a little bit more time together out front.
Yeah, it really is. I get to be home. I have a 4-month-old, and she's here, and there's nowhere really where we can go. So, in that sense, I feel very fortunate. If you are in, if your timeline worked out like ours did, then the baby was here, but was not a complicated human being. It feels very fortunate.
Well, let me jump in and start with the obvious. I want to share my congratulations to you for, the incredible and certainly deeply warranted honor of being named a Guggenheim Fellow in April. All of us here at Purdue send our socially distanced hugs and high fives to you, of course. And so can you tell us a little bit about what this means to you? And as you reflect upon it, does it open any possibilities for you going forward?
I hope so. That would be great. It's very exciting. It's a thing that that particular application is a long one. So I don't think I haven't done it every year that since I started applying, just because you really kind of got to be up for it. And, it's meaningful. It's across fields. I think that's what's meaningful about that one. There's all sorts of people doing all kinds of work in the world, artists, but also people in other fields. And it was very exciting, and it was particularly helpful coming now at a time when, I had a play that was going on that was canceled. My band just had some shows that were canceled. So it's been a lifesaver, and I hope that it does open up other doors, but it was very gratifying. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. Well earned.
Thank you.
Well, let's talk about artistic process a little bit. I like to geek out on the things that inspire artists to do what they do. And so, our audiences here at Purdue have had the pleasure of following you through two iconic works in which you captured, profound feelings and responses to the complexities of the modern world. And yet you treat them in a way that makes them, laugh at the pain in a cathartic way. And so that makes them tremendously inclusive because we can all relate to the foible of the moment. Yet you're still poking a stick at society that somehow lets these things happen. So, it's really a beautiful combination. So how do you go about zeroing in on a topic and framing it up in a way to do this? So trying to think about how you do your work as a theater maker with that perspective.
I don't know. I think every idea that I have for a project seems pretty unpromising until I commit to it. I'm like, oh, that's a terrible idea. Oh, no, don't do that. But sometimes those ideas, if they stick around long enough, those are the ones that have something in them, because the recipe for making them work is not clear. Where there are other ideas that might seem on the face, like they'd be a great idea for a show or something, and I often don't know what to do with that because it sort of seems, I don't know what I'm looking for. I don't know what I'm unpacking. So both of those shows, which were great to do, and particularly great to do at Purdue, those were really wonderful, tuned-in audiences. You never know how people in a particular area are going to read what you're working on, and that audience was so alive to what we were doing, both of the times that we did those shows. With those shows, they seemed like big fundamental experiences, and I felt like if I turned them on their head a little bit, maybe I could look into them and pursue them and kind of interrogate them. I am always one of the main targets of what I'm doing, as far as figuring out how I feel about a thing and why I'm struggling with a thing. And if I feel like if I'm able to look at myself in a critical way, that gives me a kind of purchase to also look at society and the norms that are creating the circumstance that my character might be in. It's always feels like a good recipe. If you can make fun of yourself, then you can kind of make fun of anybody else.
Well, so there are many famous stories about writers and their approaches to their work, and some need the sheer terror of a deadline, and others are very much, I write every day as a discipline. And given that daily life has been kind of changed in a dramatic way, no pun intended, do you have a practice now that helps you get into the writing mode?
It's the same practice, to be honest. It's not, I mean, now there's a baby in my life, so that's different. I get up earlier. But I write to feel normal and to feel okay. And I certainly need to do that now, as much as I ever have. And I like a deadline, but I've been doing this for a while, and I kind of need to do it in order to be okay. That doesn't mean I do it every day. If I get to an end of a draft of something, then I can't jump in the next day to something else. But I might be able to jump in a couple of days later, or I might be able to do a little something. And I think that another thing that is useful if you're a writer, in general, is that over time you get used to being able to kind of take your own temperature. Like if something isn't coming, if this is not a writing day, you get better at throwing in the towel and saying like, hey, this is not happening. I'm going to read something, or I'm going to take a walk, or I'm going to cook all day, or I think you get a little bit in tune with what you're capable of. If you're exhausted, you probably just can't do very much. Who are you doing it for? And particularly now, I think those skills are helpful to be able to just pay attention. And it's not about, I don't think this time is about trying to become somebody else. It's all the work any of us can do to just stay connected to who we already are and the people in our lives. And I think that requires a lot of forgiveness and a lot of flexibility. Those are things I think you have to have as a writer, doing it over a number of years. And so I come loaded with that to some degree.
Right. So I like how you said, I write to feel normal. That's pretty profound for folks on the outside looking in, that everyone has something that they do that makes them feel deeply connected to themselves or expressive of themselves. And so I write to feel normal. And so let me follow that line for a second. Particularly normative for you is the combination of the musical form and the theatrical form. Your most recent work, Too Macho, is certainly a work of theater with music, if not musical theater. And your earlier works, like the ones that were here at Purdue, were, one of the words to describe that is gig theater. There are many names for it. But talk to us about how you use music and songs to propel your narrative. Has it always been this way? I mean, you work to create amazing new worlds. How did that become a path for you?
Slowly, really slowly. My whole path was so slow and roundabout, much more so than I wanted it to be, but I'm very happy that it went the way it did. I was writing plays. I wrote my first play in college in my senior year, and some fellow students did it at school, and then they did it in town in Los Angeles. And I decided I wanted to be a playwright from that experience. And then I was doing that for about 10 years, really struggling, but sometimes having some successes. And secretly, I would write songs for myself or a friend, that I would sing to a friend now and then. But I never did anything with them. I don't play any instruments, so I didn't have a way really of getting them out into the world. And then after I moved to New York, I began to perform those songs a cappella, which is how I wrote them, which, scared people. It also looks like a very bad idea when a person just starts singing a cappella. And I'm not a real acrobatic singer, so there was a lot of people waiting while I tapped my foot. But that became a part of my creative life. I found these musicians who became a band with me, with these three great musicians, Ian Riggs and Vito Dieterle and Evan Levy. And then I used the two things, the playwriting, I was still writing plays, and the music separately, and I tried to keep them separate, and I took refuge from one and the other. Theater is such a long process, gestationally. It just takes a long time to make it, longer to get it produced, all of these things. And a song I could make and then sing to the guys, and we could do it that week. But I didn't want them to sort of impact each other for a long time. And then our friend Shanta Fake at Joe's Pub asked me to create a piece of gig theater, I guess. I like that. But a piece of theater that would be told through music, knowing my band, and that sort of opened a lot of other doors for me creatively. And Tumacho was a play that I wrote songs for, but it really works like a play. The music doesn't necessarily propel the action. But now all of my plays are informed in some way by music. Even I still write, straight plays or whatever it is, but they might have a song or two that I've written into the text. And definitely the music, the band's identity, and a lot of our opportunities have been in the theater world, where we are telling larger narratives. The first two were kind of personal projects, or projects that used characters, sort of my persona, and now we're expanding into things that are sort of more looking outward. And so yeah, the two have really, and I'm now writing a musical that's like a straight musical for the public. So they've all kind of come together, but they started off being very separate, and I spent a lot of time doing them each separately, and couldn't really figure out for a long time how to combine them, and now it's hard to unwind them.
Right. So you just mentioned, though, that you didn't learn an instrument necessarily growing up, or did you take lessons or have any musical experience at all that is underneath all of this?
I took 6 months of piano when I was 10, and I didn't it didn't go that well. Yeah, it wasn't. I don't know. I don't really know how the music happened. I think the music happened because I would write songs to cheer myself up. Honestly, I took long walks. I've always taken long walks as part of my playwriting practice. And when I was younger, I liked to travel, and so the walking helped me with the trying to figure out how you tell stories, and it sort of loosened my brain. And then the songs kept me company while I was walking, and then it became a thing. And then early on, when I was performing, I did make some kind of decision that this was the singer that I am, and this is the way that I write songs. And I sort of felt like that's what I'm gonna double down on that. That I wasn't going to try to make up for the lost time of not being a trained musician. That I was going to be who I am, the voice I am, and be present, and then work with really great, talented musicians if I could trick them.
Well, you must be successful at tricking them if that's what you're calling it.
Yeah. So far, so good.
The orchestra's fantastic, the guys. So for the near term, our ability to gather together and hear stories has been changed profoundly by the pandemic. And so do you have thoughts on what theater and art makers can do right now? Can we still find a way to speak to each other despite the social distancing that's present?
Maybe. I don't know. I think there are things that we can do. I've worked on some projects. The band and I have done some recordings remotely, which is something we've never done before. We're really a live collaboration. We work on stuff together and play it sometimes for years before we ever record it. And so we're now doing that. That's an outlet for us. But I think the thing that's going on in the world is real, and it's paradigm shifting. And if somebody feels moved to shift with that paradigm quickly, then that's great. But it may also be okay, I think, to wait. Most of the things that I have been working on creatively have not been in response to this moment. My body molecularly and my brain are responding to this moment, but I am working on things that I have been working on for a long time. So I already had grounding in them. The projects that I'm working on with the guys, some of it's older stuff. We have written one song together remotely, which was very strange and fun. But I think that art, is about processing, and we haven't had a lot of time to process this. So it makes sense to me if people don't know how to respond artistically to this. And I also feel like if you do want to respond, like I think people should look in their home and in their own town. And like the answer, in some way, the artistic response that I'm interested in getting about this moment is not about COVID. Like that belongs to everyone. Everyone is taking care, somebody's taking care of that. The thing that I'm interested in is, is whatever we see on Instagram somewhere, whatever's going on in people's own lives or people's own town, in a kind of smaller way. But I'm okay with people doing whatever they want to do. And I'm just not sure that, I know that there's this sort of call for artists to make great work about this moment. And my response is, maybe, maybe, and maybe not, and maybe later, maybe not. There are different concerns, I think, for people who, like as an institution or as a part of an institution, your whole job is about looking into the future and planning things that will be happening soon. And people like you need to think about it differently, I guess, right? It's like, but the future never really exists for me professionally. I mean, there are a few things happening. I always just want like a couple things out there percolating, like, hope that happens. But this sense of a kind of assured, programmatic expectation of what will be happening next, I don't have that. I don't know. It's tough right now for that. It's tough for everyone, but if there's a little bit more chaos built into your life normally, then it's a little easier to pivot in some way, I guess. Right. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, that's great. There are no simple answers here at the moment. Well, it was really great to be able to see you in January, working on some new work during the Arts Presenters Conference, and we're very excited about the new works that you have up your sleeve and in motion. And I just wanted you to know that even though you may not always be able to perceive it, your work has had a lasting impact here in our community. And that means you're still connected to us. And we feel that really palpably. So perhaps borrowing a phrase from No Place to Go and The Outer Space, know that even if you do feel as isolated at the moment as perhaps you had gone off to Mars, know that we're still on the flight team with you, right there along the way. Thanks again for spending some time with us today, Ethan. We'll stay in touch and eagerly await new things on the horizon. And so from all of us at Purdue, we send our very best. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you, Todd. I really appreciate the conversation that you and I have had over the years. And like I said, your audience is a really special audience. We felt like we were in conversation with them when we were there. So we look forward to coming back whenever it is.
Yeah. Oh, great. Thanks again. And we'll talk to you soon. Okay. That's a wrap for this episode of the Convos Cultural Updates. Thanks for riding along with us. Just for you Ethan Lipton fans, we're going to post one more time this great video of Yoga Not Yoga from the outer space. It's on Vimeo, and so the link is right here, but it's a great way to capture a bit more of Ethan's amazing creative perspective, and it's done in a really fun way. So check it out. Great to have you with us. Be well, stay safe, and keep in touch. Cheers.